Good afternoon. Looks like we've got some people starting to check in. We'll give everybody just a couple of seconds to get in. I know Elizabeth is not going to be able to join us, but Tammy, are you in? Looks like Tammy's in the room, but I don't hear you yet. There's a chat bar on the bottom right in case anybody wants to check in and just make sure that you can hear me all right. There we go. Now, Tammy, you ought to be able to be heard, hopefully. Tammy, can you hear me? All right, good deal. Well, some people can hear us anyway. Tammy, we can't hear you yet. All right, Daytona Beach can hear us, and St. Cloud. And my apologies, I'm not sure if is it Chanda or Chanda, I'm not sure, I apologize, but hi there, good to see you. And Kim and Madeline and Janet. We're gonna wait about 60 seconds longer, and if Tammy can get the microphone working on her end, fantastic, and if not, we'll just go ahead and jump right in. Hey, Erica. Winter Park, I used to live in Orlando, not too far from there. No worries. Tammy says that she can't get the mic working, so we're just going to go ahead and jump in, which is just fine. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully this will work the way I want it to. Let's take a quick peek. And let's do that right there. All right, so I'm going to take this off just for 1 second, just so I can make sure that everybody sees this. But real quickly, can everybody see just the presentation page right now? Let's give that a shot. Looks like that's working. So there we go. All right. So today we're going to go over a presentation that I call the Sustainable Growth Models for Membership. And what we're going to be talking about is how to do a better job of recruiting, engaging, and retaining members in what I'm calling a post-boomer world. And that's not to say, obviously, that the baby boomers are gone or anything along those lines. But what we've seen over the last several years is one very, very simple trend. And that trend is the largest single shift in human demographics that we've ever seen, at least in this country anyway. Some numbers estimate that roughly 65 million baby boomers over the next few years are going to be retiring and leaving the workforce. They're leaving not only the workforce, but they're leaving the tax base, they're leaving the consumer base, they're leaving the volunteer base at some levels. And that's not such a big deal because there's Gen X coming right in behind them, right? Well, yes and no. Here's the thing. Sure, the baby boomers are coming right in, or excuse me, the Gen Xers are coming right in behind, but the Gen Xers are about half the size of the baby boomers. So that's a huge, huge issue when we have, 80 some odd, or excuse me, 60 some odd million people leaving the workforce to be replaced with another 40 some odd million in the Gen X generation. Well, okay, that's not a huge issue either, because right behind them, we've got the millennials who are coming in very, very quickly. And those millennials number even larger in because we're adding in both Gen Y and Gen Z to the millennial case. They're averaging a larger number overall than the baby boomers. So they are catching up very, very, very quickly. And those of us in the Gen X generation are witnessing something unusual in the fact that we're being squeezed out. So in other words, what's happening to the Gen X is the baby boomers are sticking around much, much longer than they ever were. So those C-suite opportunities aren't opening up, which isn't a problem because we got those mid-level opportunities, those opportunities that Gen X has always sat in. The challenge, though, is these millennials are coming in and saying, "Hey, listen, I can do 80% of the work that Jay does, and I'll do it for 50% of the cost." So the Gen Xers are getting squeezed out, which is causing a huge shift in the workforce demographics, and we're starting to see a lot of people starting their own businesses. The entrepreneurship numbers are skyrocketing, and that's not happening only in Gen X, but it's happening in the Gen Y arena as well, as my kids are seeing me start my own business and thinking, well, why on earth should I go work 20 years at a company when I can start my own, be my own boss, and build my own from the ground up? So that's kind of the world that we live in today, and it's really what I wanted to start with here. To give you just a quick overview, we do have some things that we need to handle. The first thing I want to talk to you about is what we're going to talk about over the next 45 minutes or so. And to be perfectly honest with you, a long, long time ago, somebody told me a neat little piece of advice. And if you're involved in Toastmasters, you've probably heard this before. Before you give any speech, before you give any talk or presentation, the first thing you want to do is tell people what you're going to tell them. Then you proceed to tell them what it is that you intend to tell them. And at the end, you're going to tell them exactly what it is that you told them. And hopefully all three things are the same. So here we go. Objective number one. I want to talk to you today about how to build a strong value proposition that you can grow with. I want to talk to you about how we can build something that's going to be unique for you, that's going to be adaptable, something that you're going to be able to grow with as time goes on. Next, I want to talk to you about why it's so important to build what I call a culture of engagement there at your chamber. And not just why it's important, but I want to show you how to do it. And believe it or not, I think we can do that in 45 or so minutes. Last but not least, I want to show you how to build a retention plan that's specific to your organization. It's interesting. Before this presentation began, I sent out a poll to everybody and got a few responses back. And I got to be honest with you, I was a little bit surprised at the responses that I saw. Everybody that responded said that their retention rate, their overall retention rate, was north of 85%. And that's great. I'm glad to hear that. I hope for those of you that didn't respond to the poll, I hope that you'll take a look at yours as well and really start to look at it. We want to see a retention rate somewhere in that 85 plus range for most chambers. But again, it's a little bit different based on geography and size of chamber and things like that. But what really surprised me was when we started looking at the retention numbers for those first year new members, those folks that have been around for a year, are they renewing? Typically what we see in first year renewal is somewhere sub 65 and usually more like 55%. And you guys, the ones that responded anyway, were all in the 70 and up range, which is a very, very unusual number. So we'll talk about that in the end. And for those of you that don't know your retention numbers, shame on you. We should all know our retention numbers. Everybody needs to know those numbers at all times, not only our overall retention numbers, but our first year retention numbers, because that's really where the rubber meets the road. Once a member's been a member for a while, we know we've got them. we need to make sure that we've got those folks lined up from the very beginning, and that first year retention rate is really key to that. So those are the three objectives. We're going to talk about building a strong value proposition, why and how to build a culture of engagement in your organization, and then how to build a retention plan specific to your organization. So I know that nobody else can talk, but that's okay. We're gonna do this in our head. Everybody, do me a favor, and if you would, finish this phrase with me. If we keep doing what we've been doing, all right, now I know I can't hear you, but I suspect that what most everybody in the room was hearing or thinking aloud to themselves, if you didn't say it out loud, was if we keep doing what we've been doing, we're going to keep getting the same results, or we're going to keep getting what we've been getting, or some version of that, right? Well, here's the challenge. That's just not accurate. The reality is that if we keep doing what we've been doing, we're going to get less and less and less than we've ever gotten before. I can prove it. How many people have not changed the way they recruit, or not changed the way that they work on retention, or not changed the way that we target who we should go after for recruitment, or haven't changed the way we target who we should go after for retention visits? If you haven't changed those things, so we keep doing what we've been doing, I suspect that your numbers are in decline, which is in good part probably why most of you are on the call today, because we're seeing numbers that we're not happy with, or at the very least, we'd like to see those numbers start to rise. Well, I can tell you this, that's going to happen. We're going to work on that. And I think we've got some really, really cool ways that we can make some of those things happen. First of all, I want to talk to you a little bit about what an old value proposition looks like. This is, everybody here has a value proposition. We're all working on one. The question is, what value proposition are you presenting? How are you talking to your members today? What are you talking to them about? What is it about your chamber that you think should be the first thing out of our mouths? Well, here's the challenge. The old value propositions look a lot like this. They look something like this, or this, or that, or this, or this, or this. I hope I didn't choose anybody's chamber that's on the call. I was trying not to do that. Hopefully nobody here sees anything incredibly familiar, but guys, do we all do this stuff? We all do these business after hours and networking breakfasts and coffee clubs and things along those lines. And we talk about the fact that what people get out of their chamber membership is directly proportionate to what they give. You got to show up to get anything. You got to put in the time to get out the reward. Well, I'll tell you this. Remember a few minutes ago when I challenged you and I asked you, well, how do you finish this phrase? I'll ask you this one. You get out of it what you put into it. True or false? I'll tell you right now, it's just false, and I can prove it. 90% of your membership, 90%, will never attend your networking functions. They're never going to show up for your marketing opportunities. They're never going to purchase opportunities to brand or sponsor. They're never going to come. They're never going to show up. I can prove it. Take a look at your numbers. Here's the thing. Anecdotal evidence will tell me that somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 12% of total chamber membership, 8 to 12% of your members will ever be represented at your business after hours. Far fewer will come to your ribbon cuttings and things along those lines. Now, I know there are some exceptions to the rule. Your annual banquets and things like that will obviously draw a much higher number. What I'm talking about is your pure networking events, your business after hours, and these types of things that we're looking at on screen. So that being the case, well, actually, before I tell you that being the case, let me prove it. So take a look at your average business after hours, your average networking event. How many people are showing up to that event? How many people are you getting there? Take that number. But now I want you to dig a little bit deeper, because it's not about the total number of attendees. What we're talking about is members, not attendees. So if we take a look at the membership, how many members are represented? So let's just say, for example, we've got 100 people coming to our business after hours. How many of those are multiple employees from the same company, from the same organization? We can only count those once. We got to take out all the duplication. So now that we take out the duplication, if we lost 5 or 10 or 20 people, I don't know the number, Only you're going to know that individually at your chamber. But I want you to look at that number very, very carefully. And I want you to compare that to your overall membership. And I bet you we're getting pretty doggone close to that 8 to 12%. Now, for those of you in a larger community, that number's probably on the low end. It might dip even a little bit below the 8%. If you're in a larger community, the chances are that there are more things to do. There are more networking events. There are more chambers in your region and more things for people to spend their time doing. Your numbers tend to go down. If you're in a smaller community, if you're in a community that's not a bedroom community to a larger, then in those cases, we can see those numbers rise a little bit above that 12%. They could go as high as 15, I've seen in some, maybe even a little bit larger, it just depends on the event. But the bottom line is the vast majority of your members don't want to come or can't come to your networking events. So take a look at your old value proposition. Now, what do I mean by value proposition? Well, I'll challenge those of you in the membership arena, and for all of you, frankly, you ought to do this. Go take a look at your membership packet. Go look at the information that the membership professional at your organization, at your chamber, is going to bring out to a prospective member tomorrow to show them why they should join the chamber. Open it up and take a look at what the very first thing you see is. I'll bet you, I'm just guessing, but I would bet you that one of the very first things that you're going to see has something to do with networking and ribbon cuttings. I'll bet you that the very next thing you see is something that has to do with marketing and branding and sponsorship and those sorts of things. Now, here's the thing. All of that is great and all of that makes a lot of sense, and I understand. But let's think about your value proposition. It's not a value proposition if it's not seen as valuable to the majority of the people that see it. So think about this for a second. How many people here have done a Google search in the last 24 hours besides probably all of us? What I want you to think about is the last time that you did a Google search. What did you do? You typed in your search terms, and immediately Google sends you 17 million responses. And you take a look. Now, what do? Which one do you click on first? And most people say, well, the one at the very top. Well, no, you don't. You don't click on the one at the very top because it's an ad. You scroll through the ads and you go to the very first one that's not paid advertising, right? Well, when we do that, statistics show that the average Google user is going to give you anywhere from about 15 to 45 seconds for you to show them whatever it is that they're looking for. Now, I don't know what that might be, but whatever they're looking for on your website, they're giving you less than a minute for you to show it to them. Let's say, for example, that they're looking for pricing or they're looking for events or whatever it is. If they don't find it immediately, what do? They do the same thing you do. They immediately hit the back button and they go to number 2 in the search. Number 2 has less than half the amount of time that they gave for number 1 to find the same exact information. So if we don't find the information very quickly, what do? We back out. Do we go to number 3? I don't think so. I think what most of you do when you go back is you type in a new search term, because the first time, well, shame on them. The second time, shame on me. I typed in the wrong words. Let me go and try again. So that's what they do. They go back and they look at it again. They try a new search term. Guys, you do the same thing, and your members, your prospective members, worst case scenario, do the exact same thing. If the first thing you show them is networking events and ribbon cuttings, and we already know that 90% of them are predisposed not to care, then we've gone ahead and shot our first bullet, hoping, praying that we can hit 12%. Bad odds. Now, if that one didn't hit, no worries. We've got another round in the chamber, no pun intended. We've got another opportunity. Uh-oh, looks like our slides are not advancing, huh? All right, no worries. I'm going to go ahead and talk you through it without the slides. How you like that? That's just fine. You haven't missed anything yet. Trust me, I can talk you through it without seeing anything. So my apologies. Not sure why the slides aren't advancing, but we'll go ahead and keep rolling through this. So anyway, point being is this. If the first thing you tell me about is ribbon cuttings and networking events, and the second thing you talk to me about is marketing, at best, the only thing I have available to you at that point is about 15% of your audience. 85% of the folks you just showed that to don't care. So your old value proposition has to change. And We have to market ourselves differently. We have to talk about what we do differently. We have to promote the chamber differently. And we have to renegotiate how we present what we present. Does that make sense? So I can tell you this, you don't need a crystal ball to figure out what's happening. What's happening is a new demographic, these millennials, these Gen Y, Gen Z, and even some of the younger Gen X folks have caught on to the old tricks and traps. The old way of doing things doesn't work anymore because they know that that's what you're doing. They know that you're selling them. They know what you're trying to accomplish. Now, I want you to think for a second. When everybody in the world says the word salesperson, what are the first words that come to mind? I can tell you, I do this live at conferences all the time. And matter of fact, I did one. It was funny. I did it in Iowa at the Iowa Chamber Executives Conference in Clear Lake, Iowa, a couple of months ago. And people just started laughing. They wouldn't even answer the question. They were too polite. And I said, no, stop. Close your eyes for a second. I don't know why closing your eyes works, but it does. I said, close your eyes for a second. I want you to see the word salesman in your head. And I want you to start throwing out the first words that come to your mind. And all of a sudden now it's this free flow. And I'm not going to say that they got vulgar, they didn't, but it was pretty close to it with some of these words that they were choosing. Once they finally got into it, they really started throwing out some nasty, nasty words. And the reality is that all of those words, dishonest, liar, cheater, thief, used car salesman, all these things that they thought of when they thought about salespeople are exactly the way that our prospects see us when we walk in doing the same old stuff. When we walk in presenting in the same old way, and when we try and shove that square peg into a round hole. Our members are individuals. Our prospects are individuals. We can't go in with the same old stuff we've always gone in with and hope that we're going to make them fit the mold. It's just not the way that it works, unfortunately, or frankly, fortunately, if you ask me. There's an old Dilbert cartoon that I absolutely love, and I would share it with you if you could see it right now, but evidently you can't see the screen, so I'll just give you this. The Dilbert cartoon has the boss, the manager, sitting around the conference table with the staff, and he says, we need more of what the management experts call employee engagement. Now, I don't know what the details are, but it has something to do with you idiots working harder for the same pay. And Dilbert says, well, is anything different on your end? The manager says, well, I think I'm supposed to be happier. It's funny, it's cute, it's adorable, it's all those things, and it's stuck with me all these years. But guys, we have got to create a culture of engagement. We've got to stop talking about recruiting and retaining. We've got to stop using words that our members don't like. Think about that for a second. Why would our members not like the words recruit and retain? What are they? I can tell you right now, they're sales words, aren't they? Recruitment, retention, those are words that lead to sales. Those are words that salesmen use to separate their prospect from their money, isn't it? So if they're dirty words to our members and they're dirty words to our prospects, then why on earth would we continue to use them and continue to focus on them? See, here's the beautiful thing. Membership is a three-legged stool, if you will. It's recruitment, engagement, and retention. We all know that. That's not. I'm not shocking you. I'm not giving you anything that you've never heard before. But here's what I can tell you. The third leg, the middle leg, if you will, the one that's the most important, the strongest, thickest, most important leg in that stool is engagement. In fact, it's so thick, it's so strong, we could throw the other two legs away and the stool would still work. It would be a stump, but it would still work. So let me tell you what I mean. If you have an engaged member, if that member is truly engaged, if they get it, if they understand the value that the chamber delivers to them, whether they participate or not, keep in mind, participation and engagement are not synonymous. They're not the same thing. But if they're engaged, they're much more likely to stick around, right? The folks that you see every week, the folks that you talk to every single week or every month anyway, the ones that you see over and over and over again, the ones who volunteer consistently, the ones who are on your board of directors, your ambassador committee, any committee for that matter, the ones that you hear from all the time, see, participate. Maybe they're buying products. Maybe they're opening your emails every single week and clicking through the links. Maybe they're connecting with you and communicating via social media. I don't know what they're doing, but at some level they're engaged. What are the likelihood of those members dropping their membership this year? Your board members, are they going to drop their membership anytime this year? I don't think so. They're also not coming to your networking events, but they're not dropping their membership. The folks that pay for sponsorships, are they dropping their membership anytime soon? No, they're probably the same folks that sponsor every single year, year after year after year, and they're not coming to your networking events, but they are engaged and they're not going anywhere. The folks who've been members for 3 years or longer, are they engaged with your chamber? Clearly they are. Now, we may not know why, but they're engaged. And more importantly than that, they're not dropping their membership. So if we can focus on engagement rather than retention, we get both results. We get engaged members, which is great, who are not going to drop their membership. Our retention rates begin to climb, even though we don't focus on the retention. What we focus on is the engagement. Yeah, but Jay, if we focus on engagement, we're never going to recruit new members, but we will. What else does an engaged member do? So think about this for a second. I want you to picture for a second the absolute best restaurant experience you've ever had. You went out, it was great. Everything from the ambiance, the food, the service, everything was just perfect. Can you picture it? Now I want you to think for a second. When that happened, the night after, the day of, whatever it was, how many people did you tell? How many people know what a fantastic experience that was because you told them about it? All right, great. There's a bunch, right? We told some people. Let's change it up a little bit. I want you to imagine the absolute worst dining experience you've ever had. I mean, everything that could have gone wrong did. The food was horrible. The service was terrible. It was just not right in any way. How many people did you tell? More importantly, did you tell more or less than you did about the great experience? I can tell you right now, almost everybody that I've ever asked this question to, and again, I do it in conferences around the States all the time, and people tell me overwhelmingly, usually by about a 10-to-1 number, that they tell way more people about the bad than they do about the good. So we've got ourselves a challenge right off the bat. But that being said, if we get people engaged, if people love what we do, if they find value, if they see value, if they can repeat to you what the value is, they're going to go out into the community and do the same. They're going to talk about what they're getting. They're going to talk about the great experience. They're going to talk about how excited they are. They're going to tell other people. And who are they going to tell? I don't know about you, but I tend to hang out with people like me. I tend to hang out with other entrepreneurs in my community. I tend to hang out with other faculty members at Institute. When I go to Institute, that's what I do. I don't hang out just randomly with random strangers. I hang out with people who are most like me. So therefore, your members are out there talking to other prospective members just like them about their experience, good, bad, or indifferent. Now, good, they're going to talk about. Bad, they're going to talk even more about. So we've got to make sure that they're engaged so that they're not speaking the negative, so that they are speaking the positive. It just makes our job easier. And if we do more than just engage our members, if we focus on engagement as a culture, as opposed to just going out and getting our members more engaged, if we focus on, well, how do we get our board members more engaged? If we focus on how do we make sure that our staff is engaged? Funny question for you, but I'll throw it out there anyway, just for you to think about. Does anybody have a staff member that you know for a fact is not engaged? They're checked out. They are just not playing. You know, they're there, they're pulling a paycheck, but that's about the extent of it. Well, I can tell you that's an engagement issue. It's what it is. We need to engage our community. We need to engage everybody. And quite frankly, it's not that hard to do. It includes our members, our staff, our board of directors, our volunteers. Are we engaging them? And I know they keep volunteering, but they won't forever if we don't keep them engaged. Our community leaders, are we spending time making sure that our community leaders are engaged with what's going on at the chamber? Do they know what's going on? Do they know why it's important? Do they know why we're doing it? And the community at large, which is in large part why we open up our social media to everybody and we don't have private groups, which is in large part why we try and add every single possible person to our email distribution lists, isn't it? We want to make sure that we are engaging everybody that we talk to as often as we possibly can. Here's the beauty of it. Unfortunately, all of this starts with you. and it ends with you. Because here's the thing. No matter what your role at your chamber is, you're the only one from your chamber, unless there's more than one of you, I guess, at your chamber listening in, but you're the only one at your chamber listening to what we're talking about today. So if what I'm about to share with you doesn't come back to your chamber from you, then it's not coming back. They're not going to hear it. That's just the way this works. In order for you to get something out of this webinar today, you've got to take what we're about to do. Now that we've laid the groundwork, you've got to take it back. You've got to be the champion for creating this culture of engagement. You've got to be the one that does it. Even if you're not the CEO, even if you're not the executive director, you've got to go back and be the champion of this at your chamber for your community. Because if you don't, nobody will. We're going to keep doing what we've been doing, and we're going to keep getting less and less and less in return. It's just the way it works, right? So I want to talk to you about building a retention plan for your organization. I want to talk to you about how to actually go about doing it. Now, the first thing I would do is I would tell you that we need to have a name change, if nothing else. I want everybody to stop using those two dirty words, right? Everybody remembers what they were? I don't even want to say them again because I feel like I should, have my mouth washed out by my mother for saying them, but I'm going to say them one more time. Recruitment and retention should leave our vocabulary. We're not talking about that anymore. We're not talking about a retention plan. We're now talking about creating an engagement plan for your organization. We need to create a plan that's going to help us focus on making sure that the members that we have are engaged, on making sure that the members that come to us engaged from day one and stay engaged through day 1,000. Why day 1,000? We know that once a member's been a member for 3 years, 1,000 days, we've got a long-term member on our hands, don't we? So that's the goal. Engagement through day 1,000. That's the goal. If we can do that, our retention rates are going to climb. Our first-year retention rates are going to soar. Our revenues are going to increase because we're not dropping folks. Let's think about this for a second. I told you I was going to show you how to build an engagement plan and why, but I want to talk about the why before we get into the how for just 1 second. I was doing a coaching call. I do a virtual consulting platform where folks that maybe can't afford to fly me into town to work with them for long term can purchase like a virtual coaching package where we'll get on a phone call for an hour each week and we'll talk through different scenarios. Well, I was working with a chamber in Michigan a couple of months ago, and the director of membership there and I were having a conversation, and we were talking about her. Basically, it was about her retention numbers and about how she could grow the chamber. And she and her executive director were frustrated because they just couldn't seem to grow. And so I asked her a question. I said, all right, so let's think about this for a second. I want you guys to do me a favor. If you've got a pen and paper handy, do the math on this one yourselves for a second. I think it's really, really enlightening. I want you to think about how many members you're going to drop each month. If you're on a calendar year or whichever, it doesn't make any difference which way you do it. How many members are you going to drop each year divided by 12, however you need to do it. Figure out how many drops you're going to have. Now, I want you to take that number and I want you to compare it to the number of new members on average your chamber brings in each month. Here's the deal. If you just look at it as an annual number, my client in Michigan was spending 10 full months recruiting simply to replace the drops from the previous year. Now, I don't know about you, but how on earth am I going to be able to grow my organization? How is my chamber going to grow if I only get 2 months out of the year in which to grow it? And those months are November and December. Anybody having the best month that they've ever had in November and December? I don't think so. We're not growing our organizations. We're not growing our base. If we're spending 9, 10, 11 months out of the year just recuperating the folks that we have. That's why it's time for something different. That's why it's time for us to take a look at it. I hope everybody did that. I hope everybody looked at it and said, here's how long it takes us to to recuperate those non-renewing members. And think about what that means in your community. If you drop 200 members a year, 100 members a year, whatever the number is, doesn't make any difference. What are they doing? I know a lot of them probably went out of business, right? Well, not all of them, not even most of them. They went out, they joined the chamber, they didn't renew. Why didn't they renew? They didn't renew because they weren't engaged. They didn't renew because they couldn't come to any meetings. They couldn't come to any events. And they were sold on the fact that if you don't show up, you don't get out of it what you want. You got to put into it what you got to, give to get kind of mentality, right? That's not the case anymore. We know that's not the case anymore. We know that members join for their own reasons. We know that they stay for their own reasons. And that's the important piece of engagement. We have to understand that engagement means something different to every single person we talk to. So we've got to find out what engagement means to them so we can ensure that they are engaged. Once we've got that in place, then we can start talking about what we're going to do to start growing the size of our membership. Every chamber in the world, and I can tell you, every single chamber. I've worked with chambers as far to the northwest as Calgary. I've worked in Southeast Asia with chambers in Pakistan and Afghanistan on the behalf of the British government that hired us 2 years ago to go to Southeast Asia and work there with the Pakistan-Afghanistan Joint Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And I can tell you without a doubt that every single chamber in the world wants three things, and we all want the same three things. We all want more money. We all want more members. And we all want to have a greater impact in the communities that we serve. Period. That's what we want. That's what our mission statements need to be about. Making sure that we're making an impact in our community, having a greater influence in our community, being about business. We're in the business. So with that being the case, knowing that we have to work on engagement first, knowing that we've got to get people engaged with our chamber and understanding what it is that we do for them behind the scenes when they can't show up for those events. Understanding what we do in community development, understanding what we do in economic development, in workforce development, understanding that we are the engine that helps business thrive. We're trying to build a better place to live, work, and play in our community. It's not about trying to help grow that business individually. It's not about trying to make sure that a small business grows into a medium-sized business. Sure, those are pieces. But that's not the end all be all. So with all of that in mind, working on engagement is the way that we can start you on a growth pattern that starts in September or August or July or June or God forbid even May. Can you imagine if all of a sudden the drops were so low that we could actually have them all completely replaced by March or April or May of the following year, and we can start growing the size of our chamber? That's how you get out of stasis. That's how you get momentum. We got to get going. It means increasing our, well, ugly R word, our retention, and it means increasing our engagement. That's how we do it. So let me talk to you about how to build that plan. An engagement plan is really easy to build. Now, I can give you best practices. I could sit on the phone with you here for 3 hours and talk to you about what chambers across the United States have done in building engagement plans. But your organization's unique. There's nothing similar other than the scope of work between your organization and another. Our people make us different. Our geography, our sociology, everything makes us different. So here's what I want you to do. And again, guys, please, please, please remember, this starts with you. If you don't do this, nobody at your organization is going to know to do it otherwise. I need you to go back to your organization and I need you to schedule a meeting. I want your entire staff, your entire board of directors. If you have a membership committee, get them in the room. I want your ambassadors, your volunteers, put them all in the room. And I want you to go over some of the stuff that we're talking about today. I want you to share with them the percentages. 8 to 12% of our membership will ever attend our functions. Prove it to them. Show them the numbers. Another 8 to 12% of our membership will stay members for altruistic reasons. You know, you join a chamber because doggone it, that's just what you do, right? What do they look like? That's the baby boomers, isn't it? That altruistic member is the baby boomer. You join the chamber because that's just what you do. For those of you who are baby boomers on the call, this may ring true for you. But baby boomers were raised by parents who had gone through the Great Depression, who had gone through wars, who had seen America at its highest point and at some points that they weren't real proud of. And they said, you know what, we're going to build this country back to its greatest, but we're going to do it right here locally, right here from the ground floor up. And we're going to do it that way because you know what? I may not have any influence over what happens in Europe or in DC or even at the state capitol, but I sure might have influence in what happens right here in my own backyard. So that's where we're going to focus. And that's what those greatest generation folks did. That's what the parents of the baby boomers did. They raised families that were completely dependent upon local. Everything they did was local. They started businesses local. They volunteered locally. They donated their money locally. Their money didn't go to national charities. It went to the local version to make sure that what happened at home was what they wanted to happen. That's how they worked. And so those folks joined the chamber. Well, you just do it because that's what you do. Okay, those folks are going away because baby boomers are leaving the workforce. It's the very first thing we talked about. So we've got that 8-12% on the left end, those doers, those attendees, those networkers. We got the 8 to 12% on the right hand side, the folks who are altruistic about their membership. We got another smaller group back over on the left hand side. These are our marketers. These are folks who are looking for those marketing opportunities. And of course, on the other side, we got another 5%, our high level investors, the folks who spend a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money with the chamber. They might be our board members. They might be our highest level volunteers. They might be committee members. They may be our president's circle or chairman's club or whatever you might call your top tier. Those are the folks we're talking about there. We can keep segmenting. We can keep bringing them into silos to show what our membership really looks like. What we're really talking about is engagement. They're all engaged just at different levels in different ways. Some are engaged because they're involved. Others are engaged because they invest. Some are engaged because they're getting marketing benefits, some because they're getting educational benefits, some because they're meeting people and they want access to leaders, and they want access to money, and they want access to other businesses and people who might buy from them. But everybody wants something different. Once you've had an opportunity to explain all of this to that group, to that meeting, again, this is your staff, your board, your membership committee, your ambassadors, everybody in the room, explain this to them. And then I want you to go around the room. And I want you to ask each person individually, what are you personally, individually, willing, able, and most of all, committed to doing over the next 12 months to increase the engagement level of our current members, our prospective members, our board, our staff, our community at large, whatever it is. What are you willing, able, and committed to doing to increasing engagement, to helping us build this culture of engagement here at our chamber? And you're going to get some amazing, amazing things come out of that. Your chairman of the board might say something like, listen, we're going to go ahead and make sure that at every single board meeting, we write thank you notes to all of the new members and welcome them to the chamber. And we're going to sign off on those as board members. And maybe another board member says, you know what, I'll go a step further. I'd like to make sure that I'm calling new members as they're coming on board. I want to call them and welcome them and thank them. And somebody else might say, well, I'm going to go a step even further than that. I want to go visit them. Now, not every one of them. I'm not going to visit everybody. But if they're spending X number of dollars or more, if they have X number of employees or more, I want to go visit them. That's important. I want to go see them. I want to go visit and meet with them and introduce them and welcome them and thank them on behalf of the board for being a member and for volunteering to be involved with this Chamber of Commerce. And your ambassadors might say things like, look, I want to go out on visits with you. I want to help identify some of the folks who are at risk. Well, how do I identify folks who are at risk? Well, fortunately enough, it's part of our engagement plan. Once we silo people into these different compartments, once we silo everybody into engagement silos, right? The networkers, the marketers, the ones who want the education, the ones who want the access, the ones who want the whatever, the altruistics who just joined because that's what you do, the folks who've been around for 3 years. Once we've got all of that, we can figure out who's at risk. Here's a little project I'd like to give you, just a little extra, a little bonus, if you will. I call it the Green Light Project. And here's what I'd like you to do. I want you to go back to your office. Well, you're at your office now, aren't you? But anyway, I want you, after the webinar is over, I want you to pull a list, whether it's Chambermaster, WebLink, or Chamber Nation, whatever you use. I want you to pull your membership list, but I want you to do something unusual with it. I want you to delete from that list anybody who's been a member for at least 3 years. We're only looking at our first and second year members. Why? Because we know that those folks who've been around for 1,000 days or more are likely to renew at extremely high levels. We're not talking about them right now. I want you to take those members that are 1 and 2 years of as members, and I want you to print that list out. And I want you to sit down with a green highlighter, and I want you to highlight every single member that you are willing to risk your reputation on. They're coming back. Green light everybody you can. I know they'll renew. They're absolutely going to come back. We see them all the time. We hear them all the time. They fit into one of these silos that we know means engagement. Therefore, we're pretty confident they're coming back. When you're done, I want you to pass it to the next staff member. Give them the instructions. Anybody who's not already in green, I want you to green light them if you know for a pretty reasonable fact they're coming back. You'd be willing to stake your reputation on them renewing at the end of the year. Once everybody on staff has had the opportunity to do the project, and why everybody on staff? Because everybody deals with different people in different ways, and they might know things that the membership director doesn't know, the CEO doesn't know. Once everybody's had an opportunity, now what we've got is our at-risk list. We know who we need to worry about. 50% of our drops are going to come from those at-risk members. Actually, it's a lot higher than that. If you look at it, the numbers are extremely high. It's more like 75 or 80% of the members that drop are going to come right there from that at-risk list. But once you've got that done, now you've got a target. Now you know not only do you need to get your new members as they come on board engaged, but here are the folks who are existing members who we don't know about. They might be engaged, but we don't know. With that list, share that list in this meeting, in this engagement plan meeting. I call it an engagement workshop. But during this engagement workshop, I want you to share that list with people. Show them what you're up against. Show them how many there are. My guess is, and here's a simple equation for you for the math whizzes. Try this one on for size. Take your average annual loss percentage, your attrition rate. So if you retain 85%, your attrition rate is 15%. Good. I want you to take that 15% and multiply it times 1.5. So 15% times 1.5 becomes what? 22.5%. That 22.5% is going to be the percentage of your membership, give or take a little bit, that's probably in that at-risk category. That's just about the way that it plays out. It's about 1.5 times your attrition rate. So do the math for yourself, and then go see when you do the Greenlight project, what percentage of your membership is really there. But it's going to be somewhere in that, I'd say probably 15 to 25% range for most of you. That's a lot of members for most of you. So I want you to think about how we're going to address them. That's what this engagement workshop is for. Once you've shown people why people stay, why people engage, why engagement is so important, once you prove to them that we need to build this culture of engagement, then show them the work that you've done on the Greenlight project and show them how much work there is to do in order to make sure that these at-risk members are being siloed. I don't mean forever. I mean, right now we need to know, are they engaged or are they not? Why are they engaged? How are they engaged? Why would they renew? We may never hear from them again. That's okay, as long as they stay members of the chamber because they understand what we're doing. Maybe it's an invisible reason. Maybe it's because they know that the CEO, the board of directors, is fighting in their community every single day to make sure that business moves smoothly. Maybe it's because they know about the economic development work that you're doing. Maybe it's because they know that you're closing the skills gap and that's important to them. That doesn't show up anywhere else. You have to go see them. And that's why this engagement workshop is so important. You're going to get commitments from members of your board, from your volunteers, from your membership committee that say, hey, listen, I'll go out and visit with 2 a week. I'll go out with you and see them and visit with them and find out what it is and help you determine what it is that they love about this chamber, why they're engaged, how they're engaged, what they need to be more engaged. And I'm going to give you one word of caution before I move away from this. The one word of caution is simply this: never, ever, ever, please, please never ask a member, what do you need from the chamber? Or what can the chamber do for you? It's the worst question in the world. It's an absolutely meaningless question. In fact, it's a detrimental question. Asking me, what can the chamber do for me? What do you need from the chamber? leads me down a very dark path. So what are the answers that you get when somebody asks, or when you ask somebody that question? Oh, I don't know. What does that mean? That means they have no idea what the chamber does. We've done a bad job of selling them on what we are. We've done a bad job of communicating our value proposition to them. We've done a bad job of talking to them about what we do behind the scenes so that they understand what the chamber's true value really is. Or they might say, oh, I just need more business. Well, everybody says that. Everybody needs more business, don't we? That's what we're in business for, is to get more customers, to make more money, to make the cash register ring, right? Everybody says that. That doesn't tell you anything. Instead, what I want you to ask people, just delete that question from your internal memory. Don't ever use it again. It's detrimental. Instead, I want you to ask, what keeps you up at night? Think about the question, what keeps you up at night? I can answer that question because I know what keeps me up at night. Well, what do you mean? Well, I want you to picture it. You're in bed, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, your spouse is snoring softly next to you, that cute little snore that she does, and boy, oh boy, isn't that great? But you're wide awake, you're staring at the ceiling fan spinning around and around and around and around, and that gut feeling, that gnawing, that empty pain in your gut is keeping you awake. Something won't let you sleep. What is it? And then just be quiet and wait for them to answer the question. Wait for them to tell you what it is that's keeping them up at night. They're going to tell you real pain. They're going to tell you what's really going on in their business. They're going to tell you how not only to recruit them, but how to retain them long term. They're going to tell you what it's going to take. All you have to do is pay attention. If they're existing members and you're asking that question, they're telling you why they're engaged, or how you can get them engaged, what engagement would look like to them. They're giving you the answers. All you have to do is take what they said and solve their problems. Think of it like the lion that had the thorn in his paw. The mouse comes along and pulls the thorn. They're good friends forever and ever and ever. You are that mouse. You need to find the thorn that they don't even know is in their paw, and then you have to help them remove it. There's a whole session that I do on that particular topic, on a new way to sell memberships, on a new way to prospect for membership sales. Unfortunately, we don't have time to talk about it today, but I'd love to visit with you again at another time and spend a little bit more time working specifically on that. But guys, that's the stuff. That's what needs to come out of that engagement plan. I want you to write down every single thing that your board members say, everything your volunteers say, everything that your staff says. I will. Every phrase has to start, I will. Not I want to, or I might be able to, or I could. No. Everybody starts off with I will. And then they make their declaration. I will commit to making sure that I go out and visit with 2 top-end prospects with you every single month, every single week. I will go out and spend 1/2 day every month working with the membership director on making these calls. I'll go out on my own if I need to the top level folks, to go out and ask them about what keeps them up at night and find out what it is about chamber membership that really, really has them engaged. And I will report back after the fact, whether it's phone calls, emails, whether they're going out and paying visits, whether they're sending, handwritten thank you notes, whatever it is that they're doing. We're not touching our members enough. We're not engaging with them enough for them to be engaged with us. That's really the key, guys. All right, so here's the deal. Knowing full well that you guys have not been able to see any of the slides, I'm just going to go ahead and kill the slides now and move back over to the webinar and see with questions. If there are any questions, I'm back in the room now. So if you guys want to type in any, or if you want to speak, you can, there's a request button. You can request if you've got speakers anyway. Obviously, Tammy, I guess that's not working for you. But if anybody has any questions whatsoever, I'd be happy to try and answer them for you at this point. And Tammy, I see it says here that you're going to ask me to share the presentation, the slides after the session. I'll absolutely do that. No problem whatsoever. I will email those to you, everybody, here shortly. Again, there is a chat bar at the right side. If anybody wants to jump in there, you're more than welcome to jump in with any questions. All right, I'm going to go ahead and keep the webinar open for another 5-10 minutes or so. So I'm going to stay right here in case anybody does have any questions or wants to ask anything in the chat. Let me do a couple of other things. And again, guys, I am real sorry about the slides. I'm not sure why on earth they weren't forwarding. That doesn't make any sense to me, but I apologize about that. I think I missed a comment or two. How do we ask members what keeps them up at night? Okay, yeah, sure. So great question. Thank you so much. How do we ask the members what keeps them up at night it's a secondary process after the green light project. So we don't have time, energy, or resources to go do that with every single member. Some of us have 800, 900, 1,000, 200, 1,200, 1,500 members. We can't do that. So instead, what we want to make sure that we do is we want to go ahead and do the green light project and narrow that number down to that, again, 15 to 25% of our membership that is probably at risk, right? Once we've got that down, then we can go ahead and start to pay visits to them. And Madeline, Madeline asked, how do you convince your board staff, et cetera, that this isn't just a membership director problem to solve? That's exactly right. You have to show them that this is their problem to help you solve. And the way you do that is by doing the green light project and showing them this is 200 members we need to touch. How are we going to touch them every single year? How are we going to be able to stay up to date with this and still do everything else that we need to do? We can't. Frankly, we know that some of our members deserve to be visited by a board member. We know that some of our members deserve the CEO to visit. Some of them deserve an ambassador visit. That's not trying to be elitist, it's just reality. The president of the hospital system, again, I know all of you have your hospital system on as a member of your board of directors, I suspect, but if they're not a member and all of a sudden join, they should get the absolute best reception possible because of the sheer volume, the number of people they employ, the dollar amount that they're probably coming in at. They deserve a little bit, and frankly, they expect a little bit more. They get the CEO and the board president probably. So again, when you showcase this to the board, the rationale is real simple. We can't do it by ourselves. We have to get out there. We have to make sure that we're face to face with those folks that are at risk. If we want our retention numbers to grow, if we want our base to grow, if we want more money in the budget, it's not about go out and recruit more people. Think about this for a second. If all we did was focus on recruit more bodies, remember our conversation about the restaurant. Those folks that leave are talking about us in the street. They're talking about us, and what they're saying is not what we want them to say. What they're saying is, oh, I joined the chamber. I didn't get anything out of it. You shouldn't join. Just join my B&I group. Just, come to my Rotary Club. I'll get you the same kind of connections. Because they were sold on the connections. They were sold on networking. They were sold on something that they're not interested in or that they've already got someplace else. So we need to make sure that they understand the rest. And that's where we lose people. They go out into the community and they start talking about chamber membership, and they give chamber membership a bad name, and it makes it harder for us to recruit on the front end. So we've got to do a better job of engaging people from the beginning. Guys, this is what the board needs to hear. This is how you make sure that the board is hearing it. We got to make sure that they're hearing the message. So, all right, let's take all of that aside for a second, right? That's how we ask them, going back to, and again, I apologize. I think is it Shonda or Chanda? I'm going to stop pronouncing your name because I don't know how to pronounce it. I apologize. But to your question, the reality of this is real simple. When we figure out here are the at-risk members, and we have an engagement workshop where the board steps up and writes the plan, that's the key. We teach at Institute all the time, if they write the plan, they will underwrite the plan. In other words, if they're the ones who author it, if they're the ones who say, I will, then they've got to provide the resources necessary to make that happen. They said, I will, they are the resource. You will? Good. Shonda. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. Now I can say your name again. Awesome. But that's the deal. That's how we have to do that. We have to make sure that we do it in order. The order of operations is very simple. First, we do the Greenlight project, then we do the workshop, then we ask them what are they willing, able, and committed to doing during the workshop. We write that down, we capture it, we keep track of it, so that now we have volunteers who have said, I want to go out into the community and meet people. I want to help you. Because we can't, again, to answer another question, how do you space out the member touch contacts? You space that out by having more bodies doing the contacting. So we're not going to space them out. I want more people contacted more often. I want more of the right people contacted. Listen, anybody in the world can do a member visit to a member that's happy. Anybody in the world can do a member visit with a member that we see all the time, that we know all the time. Stop it. Why are we doing that? Why on earth would we continue to go back and spend a lot of time visiting and doing retention visits with members that we already know are going to retain? It doesn't make any sense. Let's be smart about this. Let's go after the folks that actually need us to help them. Let's go after the people that we can actually help. That's and we space it out that way. And Janet, I would say, rather than spacing it out, what I really want to see is how can we create more touches? I promise you this, we need to be touching our people more frequently. We need to be touching our members. We need to be touching our prospects. We need to be touching our community leaders, our staff, our board. We need to be touching everybody far, far more frequently than we do today. I'll give you an example. Everybody here is using, I suspect, Chambermaster, WebLink, or Chamber Nation. I imagine. If anybody else is using any other system, do me a favor and type that in the chat box for me, just so I know. But everybody's using one form or another of those CRMs. And every one of those CRMs has the capacity for drip marketing. In other words, you could set up a program so that throughout the year, people are getting different emails, different touches, automatic, right? Well, one of the companies, Chamber Nation, came to me about 3 years ago, and said, listen, we love what you're doing. We love this whole culture of engagement philosophy that you teach. Would you be willing to help us embed that culture of philosophy into our software? I looked at Richard like he was crazy, because I mean, how do you embed a culture or a philosophy into a software? It didn't make any sense. But as we started doing, Memby, okay. Madeline says Memby with a sad face. Yeah, I understand. Okay, you might want to take a look at some of the others, just because it's probably a cost issue. But trust me when I tell you, you'll be very, very pleasantly surprised when you take a look. But anyway, I digress. Chamber Nation comes to me and says, listen, we want to incorporate your philosophy. So here's what we did. Number one, we created an engagement ranker. And you guys can do this even without Chamber Nation. You can do this on your own with pad and paper if you had to. It would be an annoyance, but you could do it. We created an engagement ranker so that if somebody attends an event, we log it on Chamber Nation and they automatically get a point for attending. If somebody chairs a committee, we log that they're a committee member on Chamber Nation and they automatically get maybe 10 points. If somebody sits on the board, that goes into Chamber Nation. Chamber Nation recognizes that, gives them 25 points or whatever the number is. Maybe the director of the board, the chairman of the board might get 50 points. Think about anything that might register as engagement. I showed up at an event. I opened your emails. I clicked on a link. I sponsor events. I pay for marketing. I've been a member for 3 years. I'm an ambassador. Name it. Anything that can be tracked should be tracked. So we do that through Chamber Nation automatically, so you can actually see at a glance what your retention numbers look like. More importantly, what your engagement numbers look like now. You can see what members are engaged without having to do that engagement tracker or that Greenlight project every year, or at least get a pretty good feel for it. So from there, we included this drip marketing program. And one of the things that Chamber Nation and WebLink and Chambermaster will tell you, Madeline, I'm sorry, I can't tell you about Memby, but what they'll all tell you is that they've all got these drip marketing programs and nobody uses them. So what we did with Chamber Nation is actually wrote a 10-step drip marketing program. Sam, no, the Greenlight project is not covered in the PowerPoint presentation, but that's okay. I will give you the Greenlight. I'll show you a link to another webinar that actually walks you right through it. And you can take a look at that when you want to, and it'll actually help you with that as well. But anyway, sorry, I keep interrupting myself and I shouldn't do that. But the drip marketing program, So when a new member signs up, Chamber Nation automatically sees that. And your software will do this, or most of them will. But it sees a new member, and it automatically sends a pre-written letter from the CEO that says, hey, thanks for joining, welcome. Here's what you need to know as a member of this Chamber of Commerce. And it talks a little bit about what we're doing behind the scenes in our economic development, workforce development pieces. It might talk about, here are the top 5, 6, 7 things you should do right now today to get the most out of your chamber membership. It does all of these things. And then 2 days later, 3 days later, another email is sent, not to the new member, to the membership person that actually sold the membership. It comes directly from the CEO, and it says, hey, membership person, so Jay's Plumbing just joined the chamber 3 days ago. It's time to send them a handwritten thank you note. Don't forget. And then a couple days later, another email goes out, this time from the membership director to the chairman of the ambassador committee, saying, hey, Jay's Plumbing signed up. Let's make sure we assign an ambassador to go pay a visit in the next 30 days. And a little while later, the chamber, the CEO sends an email. All of this automated, just because they signed up as a new member. CEO sends an email a month in to the board of directors saying, just want to let you know, Jay's Plumbing signed up. Somebody should pay a visit to him, or say hello to him, shoot him an email, call him, thank him, whatever. On and on and on and on it goes. There are 10 different touches throughout the year. When somebody renews, Chamber Nation automatically records that. And guys, I'm not trying to sell Chamber Nation. I mean, yes, I have a vested interest, but your programs can do this too if you look into it. They can do this. When somebody renews, we wrote out 8 different letters there that come to a renewing member so that they're constantly getting these touches. Now, they're automated touches, they're email touches, or they're email touches that then integrate a phone call or a letter from somebody else. But they're touches nonetheless, and they're automated. And I would recommend that everybody try to incorporate at least 8 to 10 touches with every member every year, and certainly with the at-risk members if nobody else. All right, so Madeline, I think I answered your question on convincing board staff, etc. Guys, this is not a membership director's problem. I wear one of those little rubber bracelets around, or silicone bracelets around my wrist 24/7, 365. And it says, we're all in the membership business, because we are. Every single one of us. I don't care what your job title is. We're all in the membership business. And that's part of that culture of engagement at the staff level, at the board level. Everybody has to understand this is not a, every man for himself kind of a deal. We're all in the membership business. We've all got to do these things. We need help. And, we need to be able to help each other do the things that need to be done. Guys, listen, if membership dropped by 10% this year, and 10% next year, and 10% after that, how long would any of us be employed? How long would our board members have board positions to sit on? This is a membership issue, and we're all in the membership business. So hopefully that answers that question there for you. Sam, I know I got yours. Kim, what question can you ask on the printed application to garner expectations from the member? I appreciate the question. I understand the question. I'm going to change it a little bit. I wouldn't put a question on the application. In fact, I wouldn't even worry about the application. I'm going overtime here, and guys, I understand that for those of you that need to get off early, I totally understand that. I'm going to keep going for a second because I want to talk to you about this a little bit. But if anybody needs anything, for those of you who do need to drop off, if I can be of help in any way, shape, or form, I want you to know you are welcome to call me at any time. My email address is jay@membership180.com. Again, jay@membership180.com. My phone number, which will ring my cell phone directly no matter where in the world I am, 866-960-9789, extension 102. Again, 866-960-9789, extension 102. Facebook.com/jhandler, Twitter.com/membership180, LinkedIn, wherever you are, please feel free to connect with me, and I'll answer any questions I can and help in any way that I possibly can. And hopefully, Tammy, one day we'll get to Florida and see everybody in person. But for those of you that can stick around, the answer to that, what question can you ask on the application? Here's what I would tell you. When you go in to see a prospect, when you go in to visit with somebody, this new culture of engagement philosophy branches out. you can't keep getting the same results if you keep doing what you've been doing. You're going to get worse and worse and worse. So let's incorporate that into the sales process. A couple things. First and foremost, and guys, some of you are going to cringe at this. I promise you I'm right. I just promise you I'm right. I've seen it happen at chamber after chamber after chamber. I know I'm right, even though this sounds wrong. Not every member, excuse me, let me rephrase that. Not every business deserves to be a member of your chamber. Just let that sink in for a second. Not every business in your community deserves to be a member of the chamber. If I was running your chamber today, if all of a sudden I came in and took over your chamber, the very first thing that I would tell staff, okay, probably not the first thing, but one of the most important things I would tell staff, if you prospect a business who has not been in business for at least 2 years, don't bother coming back to the office. Seriously. You can't work for me if you are going to squander the resources that I am in charge of stewarding. And good stewardship of my resources means I can't spend hours paying you as a membership professional to go out and prospect folks who haven't proven that they have a real live business yet. If you haven't crossed that 2-year threshold, you have a hobby. You don't have a business yet. And until you prove to me that you can sustain that business. Now, this is where I get the pushback. I'm not suggesting that if somebody walks in your office and says, I want to join the chamber, I just started my business, that you should turn them down. I'm not saying that you ban from membership anybody who's been around for less than 2 years. I'm saying you don't prospect them. You don't go after them. You don't chase them. You don't work for them, right? If somebody wants help, needs help, we want to give them that help, but we have limited resources. We can't help everybody. And since we know that the vast majority of the businesses that go out of business are businesses that have been in business for less than 2 years, the likelihood of them staying a member for 3 years if they go out of business before their second year is very low. Okay, it's 0. So we've got to be more careful about who we prospect. Trust me when I tell you, even in the who's in the smallest community here? I promise you, even you have enough businesses, non-member businesses in your community that you can go get them, that you can prospect them without prospecting brand new businesses that haven't proven themselves yet. So that's where I would start. Now, let's go to the sales process. What does it look like? This is going to freak some of you out too, because this is completely different than what you're used to. I want you to make a promise to me, to yourself, that you will never do chamber show and tell again. I hate chamber show and tell, and I have proven at chamber after chamber that it doesn't work, or that there's something that works better. Well, what do I mean by chamber show and tell? What I mean is simply this. When you walk into a prospect's office, what do you bring with you? My suspicion is you bring your little briefcase or your laptop bag or whatever it is, and inside there is, of course, your business card and a notepad, and then the dreaded folder. You know the one I'm talking about, the new member packet. It's got all sorts of groovy information. Matter of fact, I was ripping on it a little bit earlier when I said that it probably talks first about networking and second about marketing. You know the one I'm talking about. Leave it at home. Don't even put it in the car. Don't take it with you. Don't be tempted by it. When you get to the meeting, you walk in, you introduce yourself. If you've got a business card, hand it to them. If not, so be it. I've never lost a piece of business because I didn't have a business card. I promise you that. But what I want you to do is highlight the meeting. I want you to start the meeting, introduce the meeting by saying something like this. Listen, I just want you to understand, I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm not here to sign you up for a membership with the chamber. I don't even have an application with me. I don't have any materials about the chamber because, to be perfectly honest with you, I don't know if chamber membership is right for you. Instead, what I'd like to do today is learn more about your business. I'd like to learn a little bit about what drives you, what motivates you, and most importantly, I want to learn about what keeps you up at night, what challenges you're facing. Because if I can help you, and joining the chamber is part of that, fantastic. If it's not, that's okay too. But I want to make sure that I have something valuable for you before I even bother you with it. So this is going to be a short meeting, 5, 10, 15 minutes tops. I want you to find out about them, take a tour of the facilities, meet some of the other management folks. That's going to come in very, very handy here in a minute. But then I just want you to find out what keeps them up at night. You might start off simply by saying, listen, I don't know much about your industry. I don't know much about your business. What sets you apart from everybody else? What makes you different? Why would somebody pick you instead of somebody else? I need to know these things so that, if I can recommend you down the road, I can do it strategically. Let them talk, let them talk, let them talk. When they're just about done, and you know when that is, right? Everybody knows when somebody's done talking to them. When you get to that point, I want you to stand up. I want you to extend your hand. I want you to thank them for the time, and I want you to head out the door. Before you get out the door, though, I want you to turn around. I want you to stop, and I want you to remember, oh, geez, one last thing. Before I go, what keeps you up at night? And then just shut up and let them talk. If they don't understand the question, go through that that example that I gave you. Listen, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Your wife is snoring next to you. You up all night, staring at the ceiling fan, spinning around, gut feeling, pain, can't sleep. Why? What's keeping you awake? If they still don't get it, listen, if you had a magic wand, you could fix any one thing in your business. It's a terrible question. Don't use it unless you have to, right? It's just trite. It's overused. Everybody's heard it. But if you had that magic wand and you could fix one thing, what would you do? And then let them talk. And then start digging. That's when your role as a master questioner really begins. You've got to start digging deeper. Don't let them just say, well, I need more business. Come on, we all need more business. How much more business? How many more customers? By how much do you need to increase your per check average? Why that number? That's a specific number. Why that number? What does it mean to you if you get there? What's the end result? Get deeper and deeper and deeper and write everything down. At the end of that, when they're done, when they've given you all the different thorns in their paw, I want you to look at your paper. I want you to shake your head and exhale and just say, man, that's a lot of stuff, Sam. Listen, I got to be honest with you. I don't know if I can help you, but I'd like your permission to take this back to the chamber. I want to go back. I want to run this by some of the folks in the building. I want to see if we can come up with some solutions for you. If we can come up with anything that'll help you. And listen, if I can I have your permission to come back and visit with you? And who's going to say no to that? Everybody's going to say yes to that. It's the equivalent of you going to the doctor and the doctor saying, well, listen, I'm not sure what you've got, but I want to go research it. If I can figure it out, would it be okay if I call you back to tell you what I found? Of course you can. Please, quick. Thank them for their time. Get the heck out. You just won. You don't know it yet, but you just won. As soon as they say, of course you can call me, get out. Get out fast. I want you to go back to the chamber. I want you to think about what they said. I want you to think about the pain points that they delivered to you, those thorns in their paws. There might have been 2 or 3 or 4 of them. There might have been 5 of them. And I want you to come up with chamber solutions to those challenges. Don't you dare spill the beans before you leave the office. Get out of his office first. Don't solve the problems right then and there. It's too simple that way. Get out. Believe it or not, I really am about to answer your question, Kim. There is no application at that point. Not that they're ever going to see. 2 or 3 days later, you're going to call them and you're going to be excited. Sam, holy cow, you're not going to believe this. Listen, I know I told you that I didn't know if I could answer all of your questions. I've got an idea I want to share with you. Are you in the office? Great. Don't move. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Click. Don't ask him for the appointment. He's already told you you can have the appointment. He's in the office. You know he's there. Listen, I'm on my way. Don't move. Click. He's excited because you're excited. Now you get there. You still don't walk in the door with any of that chamber show and tell. Now you walk in with only one thing. It's a 1 sheet in a little manila folder. Bring the manila folder in, open it so he sees there's nothing else in there. Put it on his desk. Put this 1 sheet of paper on his desk and go over it with him. And the 1 sheet's very simple. At the top, it has your logo and his logo. Next is a section where it says, here's what you told me. Here are the pains that you told me you had, A, B, C, D, and E. Next, you go through it and you show him your solutions. Okay, so you said problem A. Let me tell you about solution 1. You said problem B. Let me show you solution 2. You said problem C. I can't help you with that. That's out of my realm. I can't help you there. But you said problem D. Let me show you solution number 3. And here's how they work. It's simple. It's just simple. And your solutions, your A, your B, your C, whatever they are, your answers to his problems are usually some sort of chamber solution. Well, we needed, you got to be a member of the chamber, and then you get this, this, and this. That solves this one. We've got a sponsorship that would fit perfectly into your need to get, more VIP type customers, who understand what you do. Great, no problem. Let's go ahead and set you up with a VIP tent at the annual, oyster shuck, whatever it is that you do. I don't know. Let's get you a VIP tent with air conditioning and everything else, and we'll set you up as the sponsor in there and get you. All right, great. Here's that solution. Maybe one is, I need to meet top end people. Great. Once you sign this agreement, once you come on board, you're going to come in and sit down with me. You're going to write down a list of your top 10 people, and you're going to come in and sit with me, and I'm going to make the phone calls and introduce you to them, because 9 out of 10 of them are chamber members. I want to introduce you. At the end of that, so section 1 is the problems. Section 2 is your solutions. Section 3 simply says, here's how much it costs, and a signature line for you and a signature line for him. He doesn't need to know that you're on tier dues or that you're on a fair share structure. He doesn't need to know that you charged him $300 for dues plus $1,700 for the sponsorship plus $800 for this. Doesn't need to know any of that. He needs to know, here's what it costs, sign here. Because he already told you what it's costing him. He already told you, remember when he said, how much money do I need to make? How much money, how many more people, how many more tickets, how much, whatever it is that he said, told you exactly what he needs. He's got a $10,000 problem. $1,700 solution is okay. If he's got a $100 problem, a $1,700 solution is never going to work. At the end of the process, you've brought on the member. There's no application process. There's no question that you ask on the application, because you're going to ask the questions face to face, and then you're going to customize a solution to him. Now, it takes more time. It's more difficult. It's a 2-part close. But they've never seen anything like it. It works at a much higher rate than what you're currently doing. So you'll have fewer meetings leading to more new members. And you'll be selling in a bundle. You're not just selling a membership and then 6 weeks later trying to sell them on a sponsorship and then 6 months later trying to sell them on tickets to the annual dinner. You're selling him everything he needs, whether you're on a tiered dues structure or not, in a tiered dues structure. You're selling him everything almost like a, oh boy, why can't I say the word? A TRC, a total resource campaign. All at once, one-time deal and done. And you might have to do something different next year. But that's how you bring on a member who understands exactly what being a chamber member means, a chamber member who is engaged from day one, and a chamber member who's going to be engaged at day 1,000, because that's the kind of that's the kind of culture that you've created at your chamber. Kim, I know it's a long answer to a very short question. I apologize, but bonus time, why not? What else? Anybody else? Any other questions? I've got all the time in the world for you guys. I blocked off an extra hour for questions just in case. All right, so just because I don't see any other questions, there's 2 things I want to do. First of all, again, please remember there is a lot of ways. There are a lot of ways you can contact me. Write down your favorite and please reach out. I'd love to talk more with you. If you look in the top right corner, there should be a little tab there that says offers. If anybody's interested, again, sorry for the sales pitch. I'm not even going to talk about it. I'm just going to put it up there. And if you're interested, phenomenal, feel free. And that's the end of that. Guys, again, it's been a pleasure to speak with you. I'm going to stick around in the room for as long as need be, as long as any other questions come through. But again, please, if there's anything I can do, jay@membership180.com, 866-960-9789, extension 102, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever your preferred method is. But I can promise you this, if you email me with a question, I'm probably going to pick up the phone and call you. So just call me. Thanks, Madeline. I appreciate that. That's great to hear. And Sam, I appreciate that as well. Thank you very much. Guys, remember, don't let this fall away. Don't let this not work. Make this, your cause. Be the champion for this when you get back. Kim says, do you have any examples of how folks are compensating sales folks on recruiting for retention? Not specifically. Chambers compensate all sorts of different ways. Personally, I don't think anything changes. I don't think that doing what I'm suggesting necessarily changes the structure. of the way that you compensate your staff in any way, shape, or form. I do like the idea, frankly, of compensating for retention at the end of the year. I do like the ability for an extra point or two, should somebody renew. And again, I don't know what that looks like at each individual chamber, but the old saying. Reward people for what you want them to do. Don't punish them for doing the things you want them to do. So if you want me to recruit for retention, if you want me to recruit longer term, if you're going to ask me to do something that's uncomfortable like I did today, then you better compensate me on the back end. And that means that, when these folks do renew, I'm going to get another taste. I'm going to get another piece. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And it might even just be a bonus structure where you look at it and say, okay, tell you what, here's where we are today. Let's benchmark this thing. Overall retention is great, but forget overall retention for a minute, because your overall retention number is a direct factor of your first year retention rate, your second year retention rate, your third, fourth, fifth, eighth, 12th, they're the same. They don't change. The change is going to come in that front end, in that first and second year. So if there's going to be a bonus structure involved, what I would do is I would say, okay, look, here's where our first year or our first and second year combined retention rate is right now. It's at, the industry standard, again, is about 55%. So, all right, great. When it gets to 60%, you're going to get a $5,000 bonus. When it gets to 65%, you're going to get another $5,000 bonus. Something like that. I love that. Compensating them on real results and showing them how to get them. Don't just throw out a goal and wish them luck. Let's give them a way to get it. Let's show them how to do it. And I think this is it. Tammy, yeah, I will definitely send the slides over for you. Guys, I apologize. I can't believe that didn't work and that I didn't catch it ahead of time. It was working. Well, again, I was just testing it out on my own and I could see them moving, but my apologies that I couldn't get that through to you guys. Shonda, I got it right that time. Hopefully, thanks. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Again, please don't hesitate to reach out if I can help in any way. Other questions? Plenty of time if you guys want to keep going. Tammy, just out of curiosity, when is the next FACP, the next conference? I know we had talked about it. I think you said May. I'm not sure if Tammy Bracewell is still with us or not. For those of you who aren't with us, or for those of you who aren't with us, for those of you who aren't with us, keep listening. For those of you that are still with us, my intention is to be at the next two FACP conferences, at the very least as a sponsor, vendor, or something along those lines, if not a presenter or keynote. Kim, thanks. You bet. My pleasure. Appreciate that. So hopefully I'll get a chance to meet with some of you. I have done some work in Florida, most recently with Beth Kegel at the North Palm Beach Chamber. We did a membership campaign with them back first week of April and brought in about 200 new members and about $88,000 worth of new revenue, I think, in 3 days in April. And I will be working again with them in January. So if anybody's in that North Palm Beach area, my intention is to spend an extra couple of days there. I'm going to go scuba diving at is it Bar Harbor Bridge, I think? I'm not sure, but it's right there in the Palm Beach area. So I'm going to be and my father lives in Jupiter, so I'll be spending some extra time there in January. And maybe if nothing else, oh, there we go, May in Daytona Beach. Perfect. As a spring conference. So hopefully I'll see you there. And again, if anybody's interested in getting together for a cup of coffee or lunch or something like that in January when I'm in town or in the area anyway, that'd be great. Summer Institute. Oh, I'm on the faculty at Institute and have been since 2012. I taught the first 2 years, 12 and 13 at Madison. I took off 14 and I fast tracked and got my own IOM. So I am J Handler, comma IOM. Woohoo! Uh, and then last year they had me at Northeast. So depending on which site you're at, Kim, I may see you there. Which site do you go to? Oh, I'd love to be there, Janet. No doubt about it. I love Daytona. I lived in Orlando for well, actually twice. I lived there once for about 18 months, and then again 10 years later for another 4 years down in the Dr. Phillips area, kind of in the triangle between Disney, SeaWorld, and Islands of Adventure. Thanks, Tammy. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Hope you guys got a lot out of it. Again, there's plenty more. Would love to talk with you some more. If there's anything I can do to help you, the website, in case anybody's interested in learning more, is membership180.com. Thus endeth the sales piece. Oh, God, Kim, how long have you been going to Athens? What year are you going to be? Okay. I am at Athens almost every year. I'm not there as faculty usually, but I've been there every year for the last, oh boy, 5 years. My former partner, I bought her out of the company back in November, in December, but she was, when we met, on the Board of Regents at Athens. And so I was there with her the first couple of years. Um, I've been there for graduation every year, though, for the last 5. And Athens is home. Athens, I live pretty close to there. I'm about an hour or so away in Greenville, South Carolina. So I will absolutely be in Athens at least for graduation, if nothing else. And for those of you who don't know anything about Institute, good Lord, please go to Institute. I've got scholarships available for first-year students. If you or one of your staff members are looking at going as a first-year student, I have a couple of $500 faculty scholarships available for first years. Great program, and if you can go, I mean, obviously Athens is the closest, but it's also the, in my opinion, it's kind of, well, we all call it the preferred location of Institute. It's there's something special about Athens. I've done all 4 of the summer sites now, and there's definitely something special about Georgia. Yeah, first year gets a little overwhelming, no doubt about that. And listen, I'll tell you, I don't know if you did it last year or not, but I will make a recommendation to anybody who will hear me, and tell your friends and tell your folks. When Institute ends on Thursday, do not go home. Spend the extra dollar, even if it's your own, even if it's on your own dime. Take the extra day, go back to work on Monday. Stay at the site. If it's Athens or wherever you go, stay on site for an extra day. You know, get a bottle of wine, curl up in your PJs, and go over your notes and prioritize and work through everything, because it's just so bloody overwhelming that if you don't, you know, that whole thing when I talked about, be the champion, take this back with you. Don't allow this to, just kind of, go in one ear and out the other. That's part of the process. Is, I hope nobody goes back immediately to work right now. I hope that some of you, if you're not already writing notes, that when this call ends, you'll, sit where you are for a few minutes in silence and just, continue to work through all of this stuff, and put some plans in place. It'll absolutely help you, just even if you only took 10-15 minutes to try and kind of organize your thoughts and think through and make some plans and actually start taking action, rather than oh, well, I'll get back to that in a minute, I've got other fires to put out. Tammy says FACP also offers partial scholarships to Institute. For anybody that's interested, that information is in the November mid-month memo. Mid-month memo. That's a mouthful. How much is the FACP scholarship, Tammy? Is it a 50%er? What else, guys? Hit me with a tough one. Oh, it is a 500. Okay. Well, keep in mind, if your organization is a member of the U.S. Chamber, you get a discount. There's the early bird discount, and you can combine all of those. The other thing I would recommend, and this is just one of the things I did because again, it wasn't my organization; it was me paying out of pocket to go through and get my my IOM. At every site, they do some sort of, or at least they usually will do some sort of a silent auction. And in the silent auction, there's almost always a certificate for a free year at Institute. And you can almost always bid on that for lower. I mean, as long as you've got the money in the account to pay for it up front, you can get that even lower. And all of your, sponsorship money and all of that is kind of irrelevant at that point. So if you don't get sponsorship money in a year, you've got the opportunity to save a couple of bucks by bidding up on that gift certificate, basically. Can't tell you how much money I saved doing that. Awesome, Kim. Yeah, please do. Anytime. Like I said, if I don't answer the call, it'll go to voicemail, obviously, and I'll respond back within the hour usually. All right, we're down to 2, which I suspect is me and Tammy. Oh, back up to 3. Somebody joined back in. All right, well, barring any other, I'll leave it open for a couple more seconds here, but barring any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and at least stop the broadcast of the webinar anyway. And I'll stick around and answer any other questions in the chat box as necessary. Again, one last time, jay@membership180.com, 866-960-9789, extension 102, email, phone, social media, whatever's best for you. If there's anything I can do for any of you, if there's anything I can do to support your efforts or the efforts of your Chamber of Commerce, please don't hesitate to reach out. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, or speaking to you anyway, and hope to see you again real soon. Thanks, guys.